the one and only podcast by a blind wrestling fan.
Wrestling, 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 wrestling! It's on!
Hey up guys, welcome to another episode of WiTD, where today I'm going to be talking about the top 5 talking points of Monday Night Raw, the 11th of May 2020. Let's jump right into it. Number 1. The top story coming out of Raw was that it's goodbye for now to Becky Lynch, because she's now Preggy Lynch. She's got a bun in the oven, she's up the duff, she's having a sprog, she's off to have a baby. Yeah, we've all been forced to now think about the fact that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch have had sex at some point. That's something that I've been avoiding thinking about for a year, so thanks for that, WWE. This was a really cool way to start off Raw. It was a really emotional moment and it felt good, and I'm really glad that I knew that Becky was pregnant going into this, because she was emotional from the very start, and I think until she said that she was split between joy and ecstasy, I'd have been a little bit worried about whether she was injured. But going in, knowing she was pregnant, knowing that it was going to be a feel-good moment, it was like, oh no, she's already emotional, this is going to be an emotional moment. She talked about the fact that she knew no one when she got to America, and she was starting to wonder whether she mattered, whether she'd fit in, whether people cared, and over the years people proved that she did. The fans got behind her, and she just cut a really heartfelt promo. Asuka comes out and Becky tells her that the Money in the Bank ladder match was for the Women's Championship, not for an opportunity at it, and the briefcase, which has a combination lock apparently. I have never noticed that. Have they all had a combination lock? I don't think my eyes have ever been good enough to see that. Anyway, yeah, it's got a combination lock, and inside is the actual championship rather than a contract for it. My first thought though was like, how did Asuka not notice that? It's got to be way heavier than another Money in the Bank briefcase. It's the difference between having a piece of paper in and a title that, from all accounts from champions, stories that they've told, that shit is heavy, and you just think that Asuka would notice the difference and think that there's something in here that's not a piece of paper. It was a really cool moment though, because Asuka sold it really, really well. Whether she knew or not that Becky was pregnant is... people are talking about it here or there. There's different stories coming from different people, and I don't really think it matters, because it was just a really genuine moment anyway, whether she knew or not. And I love the way that she sold it and the way she acted it. It was like there was a slight delay between the information being told to her and like the processing of the information. Like, Becky tells her, "You're the champion," and she just goes, "I'm the champion? I'm the champion?" And then she just starts celebrating and going wild, and it's so goofy and endearing. It was brilliant. Becky tells her, "You go be a warrior, because I'm going to go be a mother." And again, it's like there's the delay between the information and the processing, because she goes, "Mother? Mother? Really?" And then she just starts again. She's congratulating her. She's going, "Becky, Becky, Becky." And it was so entertaining. And I think that this is going to be a really cool way to kick off Asuka's reign. I really hope that they go full balls to the wall on this one and have her just be a really dominant champ, because she was great at that in NXT, and this could be a really, really good chance for her to have some cracking matches with some cracking opponents, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So it's going to be a while before we see Becky Lynch again, so goodbye to her for a while, and I'll probably miss you. I'm not going to lie, I'm not the biggest Becky Lynch fan. I can respect that people like her, and I can see why. She's not necessarily the sort of character that I don't know, I've never really enjoyed her that much, but congratulations to her. I'm really happy that she gets to go and have this opportunity to be a mother, etc., and I'm really looking forward to seeing where she goes once she's actually had it, whether she comes back, whether she stays away for a while, whether she gets right back on it, which I sort of suspect that she maybe will. Really, really good news, and also a really emotional and good start to Asuka's reign that people are going to remember. And I think if the crowd was there, I think they'd all be behind Asuka right now. I think we all are, and it was a really, really cool way to start off the show, and definitely the top story coming out of it. Number 2. Let's talk about Drew McIntyre. As someone who's coming back from a long absence from the main roster, how great is Drew right now? Him as champion is absolutely perfect. They seem to have reverted back to NXT Drew McIntyre, where he's just look me in the eyes, let's have a fight, let's be men, and it's great. This week he just comes across as a complete badass. There's no other word for it. He comes out, he tells Zelina's faction, bring it bitches. They're falling apart at the seams, by the way, because Austin Theory is not welcome in that faction by the looks of it. But Drew tells them to bring it, then he just claymores Garza, claymores Theory, and tells Andrade, step up, be a man, let's have a fight. Then they have this seemingly great match. Was it great for me? No. Should it have been? Yes, but Tom Phillips. Anyway, they have this seemingly great match where Andrade's just zeroing in on Drew's previously injured arm like a marksman going for his target. Drew's just showing off his power, kicking out her moves at one and throwing Andrade across the ring, coming off the top rope and giving him headbutts and just doing all the great Drew McIntyre stuff. And then when he eventually picks up the win against Andrade, he just cuts this charming badass promo where he says that he didn't think he was having a match tonight, but he always comes prepared for a fight. He's always up for a Claymore party. He says that the match with Andrade was fun. Then he talks a bunch of trash about Baron Corbin, jokes about how much of a sexy Scotsman he is, and then just cheerily wishes Baron, I'll see you next week, buddy. And he's just so great, man. He says that he's going to have a Claymore fit for a king. He calls Baron a terrible human being, and man, he just comes across as so charming and badass, and those are just the two words that I can think of that just encapsulate this whole thing. The way that he just rattles through a couple of nicknames like the sexy Scotsman and the captain of Claymore Country and the big man and just loads of different things, and then he just goes, I'm just kidding with you, and it's just great. I literally cannot express enough how this is on the opposite end of the spectrum to Brock Lesnar for me, in terms of, I guess I've always just been worked by Lesnar and I've always hated him, and it's not a I hate you and I want to see you lose, it's a I hate you so much I'm going to start watching this product kind of hate. Whereas in Drew is like, yeah man, I'm going to start watching Raw again because you are the champion that I want to see. He has a cracking match with Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank, which again, Tom Phillips, was it great for me? No. Should it have been? Yes, but Tom. But he has that great match with Seth and the story is really, really good. And then he just comes out tonight and just cements that I'm the top guy, I will fight anyone, and I'm just, be a man. Stand up, fight me if you think that you've got what it takes. And he's going to put so many people down over this title reign, and it's going to be fucking awesome.
Number 3.
With Asuka as the Women's World Champion, I can't see them continuing to have a tag with Kairi Sane, and if the Women's Tag Division is losing the Kabuki Warriors, then at least there's a little bit of good news for them this week. The IKonics made the return, and it was a really entertaining segment. Nice to see them return on my return, considering that I haven't watched main roster in a number of months. It was nice to tune back in and have an episode where there was actually a bit of a big moment, enough to make me forget about the fact that there was no crowd for 5 seconds. It's such a sore thumb, it sticks out, but at the end of the day, that did make me forget for a little bit. We get a moment of Bliss, and Bliss Cross are out there, they're doing their thing, Nikki's being weird, they're putting over Mother's Day, and then the IKonics interrupt them, they make the return, and they talk trash about Becky's baby. They're like, what's so special about a baby anyway? I've been a baby. Billy was a baby once. Nikki still acts like a baby. And they demand that they have a title shot, and Bliss tells them, you can't just come out here and demand a title shot, to which I was like, yeah, they can, Alexa. People do that all the time. But Nikki gets angry. She tells them, you got upstaged by something the size of a jelly baby. And it really made me laugh. But they don't end up having a title match. They do have just a normal match. But it was really cool to see the IKonics come back. I have missed them. I like their shtick. We are the bestest friends, and our friendship is so much better than yours. And it's just a nice dynamic to have, and it's always good to see fresh faces, and it'll be fun to see where they go from there. Let me know what you thought about the IKonics return. Number 4. MVP drops some brutal honesty and recruits Bobby Lashley this week. We get a match between Humberto Carrillo and Bobby Lashley. Lashley picks up the win fairly easily, as you'd expect. Then MVP goes up to Lashley later on in the night and just lays some brutal truth upon him and recruits him in the process. But he has some really, really good lines too. He asks him, do you know when the last time you went for a world championship was? It was in 2007. In 2007, I was just getting started, and now I'm back here, and you're still meandering around fighting jobbers like Humberto Carrillo. Not his exact words, it's what he meant though. He has this great line about him fighting Carrillo when fools from SmackDown are coming and fighting the world champion. And he also has a great line where he says, when is Lashley gonna let Lashley free? Just wraps up his point perfectly. When are you going to stop holding yourself back? And he tells him to give him a call when he gets serious. He also encounters Lana. I was going to call her Lashley then. He encounters Lana, and she comes so close to just ruining this whole thing by screeching at MVP because he says he stops. And obviously I couldn't see it, but I just imagine him just looking at her, looking her up and down, and he's just like, there's another cage keeping Lashley locked up, and she starts screaming, how dare you, who do you think you are, at the top of her lungs. And it's terrible, but all the interaction between MVP and Lashley was great. Later on in the night, R-Truth is in a match in a 6-man tag, which I'm not going to go into too much, but R-Truth picks up the win in that match, pinning MVP, and Lashley comes out and just batters Truth and then goes off with MVP. So Lashley is the first recruit into this little stable that he's going to have. I've heard that Cedric Alexander and Ricochet are going to be part of this as well, and I'd love to see Apollo Crews be a part of that too, now that there's rumours that he's going to be heel. I'd love to see MVP just form this stable of guys that are underutilised, that he's going to help unlock the potential that they've been wasting, and they're just going to let themselves loose, and he's going to bring that out of them. And I think that could be really, really cool, and you could get some good stories out of it. And if you can get Lashley to a place where he is believable enough to be in a match with Drew, I don't think that I would necessarily mind a Drew-Lashley feud, with Drew coming out on top, obviously, but it would be a decent feud if there was that stable involved with that sort of feel to them. So yeah, really, really intrigued by that one. Number 5. Let's talk about Seth Rollins becoming WiTD public enemy number 1, shall we? This was really, really interesting. Seth Rollins is so great. I love the fact that his music has changed. I love this new character that I've seen little bits and bobs of over the last couple of months as I've been reintroducing myself to the main roster, but this is a really cool turn for Seth. He just snaps during this episode, and it was a really, really cool dynamic. So we get a match between Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins taking on Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black, who apparently are now a team who've must have just bonded over the fact that they almost got murdered together. Luckily they didn't, because there was a secondary roof that was just 6 feet below where they got thrown off. Yes, Baron Corbin still tried to murder them. I don't care whether there was a secondary roof. He didn't know that. He threw them over. He attempted to murder them. He's an attempted murderer. Anyway, they teamed up, and Seth, throughout this whole thing, was just completely out of it. And commentary hammered this home big time. They really, really hammered it home every chance that they got. And that he was just looking out of it, that he was dishevelled. At one point, Joe calls him a hobo. They just call him catatonic. They could not have made it clearer that he was just standing in the corner and he was not trying to tag in at all. He wasn't paying attention to the match. Poor Buddy Murphy was getting the shit kicked out of him by Aleister Black and Rey Mysterio, and it was really, really cool because Seth did nothing, and I thought, right, okay, what is going on here? Is it the fact that Becky's pregnant? It could be. I don't really care for that explanation. I like the thought that Drew has just fucked him up in just the most blunt way possible. At the end of the day, there's a lot going on in Seth Rollins' life right now. As a character, he really believes that it's best for the WWE if he is the champ. He's worried now. He lost, Drew won, and now Seth is worrying that the fate of the WWE is going to suffer because he's not the champ. At the same time, he knows he's probably going to have to go away for a bit now because Becky's pregnant. He's going to have to go be a dad. What's going to happen with the WWE while he's away? And then he's got just all of this stuff just piling on top, and he's gone through a little bit of an emotional breakdown just live on TV, and that's just awesome because he just stands there unresponsive till at one point Rey Mysterio is attacking Buddy Murphy in the corner and he accidentally clocks Rollins, and this just sets Rollins off. He starts attacking Rey on the outside, throws him into the barricade, starts attacking his eye. Yes, I now hate you, Rollins. That is a low thing to do. He attacks Rey's eye, he screams at everyone to stay the hell back while he's doing it, and then he just screams at Rey, "It's not your fault, Rey, it's not your fault, Rey, it's not your fault, Rey," and then he just drives Rey Mysterio's eye into the corner of the steel steps, and Rey sells this great with just the sound of his pain, man, just the way he sold it as if it was sort of making him feel a little bit sick, and just the groans and everything, man. As someone who suffered a lot of eye pain, I had some wincing going on in this scene, because let's just put it this way, at the very, very least, doing something like that, you're gonna get a cornea scratch. And I've had many a cornea scratch from different bits and bobs, and surgery on my eyes and stuff like that. A cornea scratch hurts like a bitch, and that's the very least that Rey got from that. And I hate you, Rollins. How could you do that? That's despicable. What a trash human being Seth Rollins is right now. I'm declaring it here and now. Seth Rollins is public enemy number 1. I will beat you up if I find you, if I ever find you in this world of blackness in which I live. Anyway, this was brilliant. He finds Rey later on as Rey's being checked on by the trainers, and he just goes, "Rey, I don't know what happened out there," and it seems so genuine. It doesn't seem like he's putting it on. It's just like he did it, and then afterwards it all just sort of hit him that he's done it. Sorry, and man, I am so interested to see where he goes with this. I think some people are taking it one way, some people are taking it another, and I think that all of the explanations as why he's done it are right. It's just the fact that all of this stuff is going on in his life, and that, oh man, it's just so interesting. I loved this. What a piece of shit you are, Rollins. Honourable mentions. Shayna Baszler was another one of the heels that talked shit about Becky's baby, and she had some great lines. She said that Becky has to be stupid to get knocked up while she's the women's champ. She says, "Imagine giving up being the longest reigning women's champion. in your prime to house some miserable parasite, that kid's gonna suck. She says 10 out of 10 mothers will try to convince you that having a baby didn't ruin their career. She talks a bunch of shit to Natalia as well, because Natalia comes up to her at some point and she says, "How dare you disrespect, wonder, the miracle of childbirth," or motherhood, or something like that. It really made me laugh, but Shayna had some barbs for her as well about the Hart dynasty dying with her and her never having children. Just what a bully she is. It was just the way she pulls it off, the way she cuts it, and the attitude that she puts into it is perfect. Jinder Mahal seems to be trying to be a face. It doesn't come across as genuine at all, and there's a number of ways that they can go about this, but he talks about the fact that he's been gone for so long, and it made him realise that he wants the respect of the WWE Universe like Drew McIntyre has, and so now he's going to go on a hero's journey and gain the respect of the fans. And there's a couple of ways that they could go with this. Either they have him be dick guy that is doing bad things but thinks they're good things, but that's a bit too close to Rollins. You get bad guy that wants to be good guy and is still doing bad things but trying to be good, or you can just have bad guy that's really actually trying to be a good guy, and I think that would be really funny. I'd love to see, because he says he's learnt from his past mistakes, and I'd love to see him falling into old ways and trying to break his bad habits and trying to change. I think that'd actually be a really interesting story with him, because anyone who's listened to interviews with Jinder will know that he's actually a really nice, kind of funny guy, and I think that if they let him be a bit more of himself, that he could get quite over. And I think if he spends the next couple of weeks trying to gain the respect of the fans, they could get quite over, really. But I suspect that eventually he'll just do something completely dickish and ruin it all. But it was an entertaining just little promo, because I was sitting there like, you really aren't coming across as genuine here, Jinder. And last but not least, I want to hammer it home. Let it not be forgotten, people. Baron Corbin is an attempted murderer. He tried to kill Aleister Black and Rey Mysterio there. He didn't know that secondary roof was there. I doubt he even knew which side of the building he was on. Even if he memorised the layout of the building, I doubt that. In fact, no, he says in a little promo, he says that he was just seeing red and he thought that's what it was going to take to become the king, Money in the Bank. And that means that he didn't know that roof was there, and he threw them over, and he was just perfectly willing to murder them. And now I'm sort of afraid that it's unlocked some sort of deep darkness inside of Baron Corbin, and everyone in the WWE is in danger. But yeah, I wanted to mention that again, because it's just really funny to me, the fact that he totally tried to kill them. If you've got any thoughts on this week's Raw or this episode of Wrestling in the Dark, you know where the comment section is, or you can find me on Twitter at Mason_WITD. I hope you had fun. If you did, like and subscribe, then you'll never miss another episode. For now, I'm off, and you should have a good one.